This is how I get big, wide backing vocals that don't tread on the lead vocal, don't get too loud, too quiet all the time, nicely controlled, nicely in the pocket. So now we are onto the backing vocal bus. This hasn't been in my template for that long, probably like 6 months. I used to just have one single vocal bus, but I find this just helps loads and loads, so I do it. You wouldn't believe it, right? First thing on there is an optional parallel compression. Again, I can just choose the attack and release time I like, whichever unit, and then dial it in. Yeah, just really quick way of getting a little extra glue out of stuff. Then we have this Vari-Moon compressor. This is by Analog Obsession. This plugin does something mental, like you can be compressing like 3 dB and on 2:1, and you'll notice as you go through round to 4:1, something just changes. Something changes with like the punch or the attack and the release. Just sounds well good. So sometimes I'll set it higher to more of like a limiting thing, but most of the time I just end up with it on 4:1. And the threshold is always set to -12. And what I'll do is I'll go to a part of the song, like the end of the song, for example, when like it has loads of backing vocals in, and after I've done the rough balance of all of them, I'll make sure that the total backing vocals is just getting like 1 to 2 dB of compression. And that means when all of them are in, they're getting tucked in just a little bit. And then that's a really, really good point for me to start mixing into. By the end of the mix, they might be getting compressed like 3 dB, 4 dB. They might be getting compressed not at all. It depends what sounds good. But again, I'm like mixing into compression and everything's getting glued and controlled nicely together. So at the beginning of the song, the backing vocals aren't going to hit the compressor because there's only a couple of them. So they're going to be about the same volume, maybe a bit quieter. Then at the end of the song, when there's loads of backing vocals, the compression kicks in and controls that and glues it together for us. Me. Who's us? Who knows? Then we have Microshift, and this is great. I don't use it on every mix, but like it just makes the vocals sit behind the lead vocal for me. So any backings can just go through this. I tend to just have it like, if you click on here, it'll tell you what percentage you're on. On all Soundtoys plugins, you can just click on it and it'll tell you what it's doing. But yeah, so I tend to just have it on very slightly 30%, 20%, maybe even 15%. I don't really mess with this. One just sounds great for this kind of job. It means that if I pan something like just 15 or 30, it will add some sort of width and depth and stereo-ness to it, and it can be a lot closer in volume to the lead vocal without it treading on the lead vocal. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then this is set up, this is left on actually from before I had my latest reverb thing put into the template. Yeah, it's just really cool. Sometimes you just want to send those backings into a slightly different space and you can just stick this on and it'll do it. It's set to only late reflections, so it's only adding like tail end to them, and that can really help soften them. When things are coming in and out of the mix, sometimes I find it weird when something's there and then it's gone. That feels like really unnatural. So adding a slight reverb tail to it sort of helps things float in and out. Other people do stuff where it like appears and goes away really, really well. Like other mixing engineers do it and it sounds so cool, and I listen to their records and I'm like, oh my god, that sounds so cool. But then when I'm mixing, I'm like, I don't like that at all. So I do stuff like this. So then the last one we have is sidechain compression, and this again is set to the Vox bus. So this BV bus is actually feeding into the Vox bus, which is here, right? But then the output of this is telling this to turn down, which still kind of breaks my brain, but it does work. If there's only backing vocals singing, it probably won't be loud enough to tell this compressor to turn down. And when there's just the leads in and very quiet backing vocals, it probably won't be loud enough to tell this compressor to turn down. But when there's loud backing vocals and loud lead vocals, it will tell this compressor to turn down the backing vocals, which means I have to do slightly less automation. And it means when I am doing my automation, I'm able to just ride a fader and just do subtle bits which sound good. I'm not like moving things up in big swathes. So I think that makes sense, right? It's the sum of the backing vocal and the lead vocals that make it loud enough to turn this vocal sidechain compressor down. Have I explained that well? Should I do it again? Nah, you'll get it. If you don't understand it, I'm sorry. I can explain it properly. Leave it in the comments and I'll explain it properly. I promise. So everyone that sends me mixes these days, there's loads and loads of backing vocals on it, right? Loads of stacks. So you send me a load of oohs and a load of ahs, harmonies, all that. I'll group them into their own buses, into their own track stacks. I'll process them and balance them, and then they go into this BV. But because I like to do those things in track stacks so I can collapse them and it makes my mix view like smaller, I don't have buses set up for all that sort of stuff. I find that all of that's just as quick to do it as and when. And what I'm going to do on each of those buses is totally different mix to mix. Sometimes I'll get sent a backing vocal stack and it'll sound mental. I'll be like, how did you record this? It's like all 300 hertz. It's got like nothing in, and that'll take loads and loads of work. And then I'll get sent some and it's like gone. They've been like EQ'd and compressed on the way in, and they sound incredible. And I don't even put a plugin on. I'm just balancing. Do you know what I mean? Having stuff set up for all of that just feels really long and convoluted and unnecessary for me. That's BVs. So don't forget, you can download this template from the link below. And if you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe for a new video every week. Shred and art.